Will gets an opportunity to gain recognition as a painter by displaying his work at an art show. He starts falling for a fellow artist, Rachel, but his ex-girlfriend Susan wants some closure. Twin brothers Will and Ori Hunter had a great childhood. While Ori likes making movies, Will prefers painting. Their father, Simon, is the storage king and wants Will to help with the family business. He plans to retire soon so that he can build a plane like the Wright brothers and fly it. Will wants to be a painter instead, so he moves to New York City with his girlfriend. When he fails as a gallery artist, he joins his father's business again. His ex-girlfriend, Susan, runs into him and wonders why he's not in Charleston. Will admits he came back when things didn't work out. He takes Susan to her mother's storage unit and asks about her partner, Lucian. He learns that they broke up. Sometime later, Susan finds Will painting in his storage unit. She knows he's talented and asks him to participate in an art show that weekend. She wants to reconnect with him through it, too. Ori comes and teases Susan about cheating on a gallery owner. She gets offended but asks Will to think about the show before she leaves. When Ori learns about the art show, he thinks Will should be a part of it. Ori and Will borrow Simon's van for the show. They ask his employee, Wheezy, to cover for them till they're gone. Ori wants to film Will's painting comeback and drags along his camera. Susan is worried about Will being late and not getting a tent for his paintings. She doesn't want Ori around, but he convinces Susan that she needs him to promote her show. When Will also vouches for him, Susan agrees to let him stay if he doesn't disturb anyone. While Susan gets busy managing the show, Will starts setting up. Rachel watches him struggling and bets with Chief about how long the rookie will last. Will tries to convince himself that not having a tent will make him stand out. Another artist, Vic, abuses them for being amateurs, but Rachel shuts him down. She finds their struggle painful and thinks Will should start putting up walls if he doesn't have a tent. She advises that he should put the best pieces in the back to draw in customers. Ori wants to record her tips, but she asks Will to keep him away from her. Chief also drops by to help Will and asks Ori to focus more on setting up than recording. When Will mentions Rachel and Chief to Susan, she dismisses them as people whose art can't be displayed in the city. As customers start walking in, Will gets disappointed when no one shows interest in his work. Ori asks Will not to avoid Wheezy's texts about a mice problem at the storage unit. Will promises to take care of it before heading out for coffee with him. Will admires Rachel's art and notices her art show bingo card. He's surprised by the rude things customers do at the show. An item on the list is about a newbie's first sale, so Rachel is watching Will closely to get him on her card. She explains that whoever wins the bingo buys the first round of drinks that night. When Ori drops by, Will wonders why she keeps doing these shows when people are so difficult. For Rachel, these shows are part of being an artist. Ori wants to quote her for his film, so she threatens him enough to make him leave. Will learns that Chief rings a bell every time he makes a sale to keep the energy up. He promises to ring it for Will's first time. Will finally gets some interest from a customer, who asks what inspired his paintings. Will discusses what it's like to work in a facility where people store their dreams and fears for years. Since that's his inspiration, the customer gets impressed and buys a painting. Glad to make his first sale, Will walks over to Chief's tent and rings the bell. As it starts raining, Will gets a temporary tent to protect his art. Susan has received a lot of complaints about Ori and asks Will to control him. She wants him for next week's show too, since he got great feedback. Back at the storage facility, Simon assures a customer that he will set up traps for mice. When he asks Wheezy for the van, he learns that it's missing. Ori and Will find Vic's work very provocative. He asks them to keep moving so they don't block paying customers. Will asks Ori not to disturb people at the show, but he's struggling to find a hook for his film. He has too much random footage of things. Rachel asks Will not to be disheartened if he doesn't sell enough. She reminds him about the party that night at Chief's van. She asks him to get Susan, but Will clarifies that she is his ex. He discusses his family business and how much he wants to focus on paintings. When Rachel points out that his father is right behind him, Will joins Ori. Simon scolds him for ignoring Wheezy and creating problems with a customer. Simon hopes Will and Ori won't turn their backs on the Storage King for such unsuccessful art shows. That night, Will joins the other artists in Chief's van. He sits with Rachel and watches the other artists rant about how much customers bargain with them. They all agree that they're doing this for actual buyers who appreciate their art. Rachel explains that this party is a tradition they do every day at the end of the show to blow off steam. Will asks about her necklace, which she got from an artist in New York who collects lost objects. Will gets a message from Ori and leaves the party. Rachel realizes he left his bag behind and follows him outside. She teases him for being a rookie because he's looking forward to selling art the following day. When Ori comes to pick him up, Will decides he wants to head to Rachel's tent. he comes across a photo of her first show with her Aunt Judy. Rachel started off as her helper in her shows. It gave her something to do when her parents were in the middle of a divorce. Judy also helped her channel her confused feelings into beautiful art pieces. She always inspired Rachel, so it was very hard to lose her. Will discusses how vulnerable he felt with his first sale, which is something Rachel can't relate to. Selling art for her now is more about paying her bills, and she doesn't feel the excitement anymore. Making art has become an automatic process that she does now after putting on some music. Will takes her phone to check her playlist and loves the song she last heard. He's impressed when he learns that she sang it. Rachel admits she loves making music when there's no pressure to sell it. He dances with her to that song and kisses her. Ori catches them outside and teases them about being a prom couple. The next morning, Ori knows he wants to make art show bingo his hook for the film. He plans to shoot the crazy things that happen in an art show for his documentary. He has already captured some moments and wants to get the rest from the bingo card. They all set up their tents and interact with potential customers. Will gets curious about a man walking around with Susan. Rachel knows him as the judge of the competition and asks Will to ignore him. She suggests that Will should only talk to Lehman Merkovich if he shows interest in his art. Susan introduces Will to Lehman and tries to praise his art. Will learns from Susan that Lehman owns a gallery in New York. Lehman compares Will's artwork to a ray of sunshine, which is not his thing. Ori is already picturing Lehman as the great antagonist in his movie. Vic seems to know Lehman and hates that he's judging them. When Lehman comments on his work, Vic gets offended and calls out Lehman for being too fancy. Susan asks Vic to leave the art show to get aggressive. A while later, Susan seems glad Will has decided to do the Boardwalk art show next week. She knows that Lehman likes his work and asks him to introduce darker colors to bring more mystery into his paintings. Susan offers to drop by Will's studio, but he pretends to be busy. Simon feels bad for being harsh on Will because he wants to travel with his wife. He's eager to work on his passion project and warns Will that he can't come back once he leaves storage. Will gets irritated when Ori keeps filming everything and doesn't help him set up. Ori shows Susan that he has permission to film, but she tears it up. She still agrees to let him stick around because of Will. The artists consider Will a part of them and include him in bingo. Ori starts interviewing Chief, who became an artist after working in the Navy. Vic wants to hook up with Rachel again, but she insists that she wants to be friends and nothing more. She finds Will sitting alone with ice cream and asks him to buy the first round in Chief's van to win bingo. Vic admires Will's work and invites him to his tent for weed brownies. They get high and watch the customers coming to Vic's booth. Will is considering trying his luck in New York, but Vic has already been down that road. He has realized that he doesn't have it in him to work with high society people. Will admires his art, but Vic is more interested in how great Rachel is. He loves that Rachel doesn't care about anything. Susan comes to Will because Lehman wants to include him in a show. He has some pointers for Will, so she asks him to drop by her hotel that night to discuss it. Will needs to get dinner for Ori and the crew that night, so Susan asks him to come by later. The crew is still following Will around after dinner, but he asks Ori to give him some space. Will brings the first round of drinks for the artists as the bingo winner. Rachel loves his enthusiasm and that he's taking part in the Boardwalk show. When he mentions Lehman wanting to do a show with him in New York, Rachel asks him to figure out if he wants to be successful or happy. Will is inspired by her music, so she offers to give him a private concert. She asks him to wait for a few minutes after she leaves so that people don't suspect them. Chief is like her dad, so Will understands why she wants to be discreet. He joins her a while later and asks her to keep playing. They head to the beach, where Rachel asks why Will only has a single L in his name. Will explains that his name is short for Wilbur, one of the Wright brothers. Rachel thinks his father's obsession with aviation is kind of cute. They decide to go swimming and kiss in the sea. Meanwhile, Vic drops by Rachel's tent to look for her. He waits for a while and then leaves. Susan also waits for Will all night, but he doesn't turn up at her hotel. Will apologizes to Susan the next morning for not dropping by her hotel. He claims he was busy all night with Ori. Rachel finds Ori showing his crew the footage of her and Will kissing on the beach. He seems to be making fun of Rachel not knowing that Will might go to New York with Susan. Rachel feels hurt and asks Will to stay away from her. She mentions Ori and that she doesn't want to be a pit stop for him to figure out his life. A customer drops by Vic's tent and asks for the price of a piece. Vic gets offended when he asks for a discount because people don't respect him. The customer decides to buy it anyway, but Vic notices a mic on him and knows he's an actor sent by Ori. He tries to beat Ori for messing with him, so Susan asks both Ori and Vic to leave from the show. Will is also angry with Ori and asks him to figure things out himself. Rachel packs up early, and Chief knows it's because of Ori's beach video. Will feels betrayed that Ori would do something like that to him. Will starts working with his dad again and gets a message from Susan after a few weeks. She feels bad about how they left things and wants to clear the air. Will turns up at the next show and finds Vic also watching from a distance. Will feels bad about how things ended for Vic, but he also lost interest in painting recently. Vic has been sober for a month because he wants to make his artwork for him this time. Vic asks Will to be more like his brother and take chances. His brother was also like Ori, but he passed away. Vic thinks Will shouldn't let some distance between them break their relationship. He knows life will get better if Will talks to Ori again. Will watches Rachel performing for a crowd and feels proud. He finds Susan and apologizes for not returning her calls. He knows she'll make it big in New York, but that's not the life he wants. Susan understands that he doesn't want to take a chance again, but thinks he's talented enough to do so. Will helps a couple with their storage unit and assures them their issues will get solved. He gets inspired by the expecting couple and asks them to pose for an idea he got for his art. When Will comes to meet Ori, he offers to let him punch him. When he does, Ori apologizes for crossing a lot of lines during the art show. He has found some footage where Rachel was explaining her artistic motivation and wants to work that angle for his documentary. Rachel's mother takes a picture with her and posts it on social media. Ori gets a notification for that and rushes to the spot to find Rachel. Ori confesses how he found her location and admits his eye is purple because Will punched him. He asks Rachel not to blame Will for his mistake of filming them without permission. He knows that Will cares about her and is miserable without her. Will starts working on his new artwork with a painting of Rachel and the couple that inspired him. Ori brings Rachel to Will, who kisses and makes up with Will. A while later, they all attend the screening of Ori's documentary.